There are exactly 271 jokes in the movie Airplane, or on average just about 3 jokes per minute for the entirety of the movie. And the reason I know that is because I meticulously counted every single one of them. And it doesn't just end there. I analyzed things like the time it takes from setups to payoffs, the different types of jokes they utilize, and broke down the fundamental comedy principles that altogether make this movie the greatest comedy of all time. Objectively. And just so you know, I'll be spoiling a lot, so if you haven't seen the movie, go ahead and do that. I'll wait. Oh, you're still here? Starting with the big picture, one of the most important things for a comedy is that it would still be a good movie if it was not a comedy. So if you were to remove all the jokes and switch up the genre, it would still be an engaging story. And in this case, the proof is right here, because at its core, Airplane is a parody of the 1957 movie 0 Hour, and the plot and the characters are so identical that they actually had to secure the rights because it basically qualifies as a remake, and they're not shying away from it at all. The character names are the same, the story beats are the same, and in some cases, they even directly parody some of the lines.
Would you care for a drop, madam?
Certainly not.
Would you like a little whiskey, ma'am?
Certainly not.
But the key to a good parody is that from an audience perspective, it has to make sense without having any prior context or having seen the original, which is exactly one of the reasons why Airplane has aged so well, because for the majority of it, the humor is timeless. So let's take a closer look at the jokes. The first category is visual gags, and that in itself could be one of two types. The first is the obvious ones, the ones that are right in front of you, front and center for you to see. They're funny by themselves and sometimes break the illusion of reality in order to achieve a much stronger comedic effect. It's surreal, it's absurdist, and they're basically a Warner Brothers cartoon in real life. Love them. And then we have the background visual gags. As the name implies, those are the most subtle ones that are not the main focus of the scene. It could be a tiny detail like the category of a magazine or something a little bit more noticeable, but whatever the case may be, it feels like a treasure hunt for the people who actually notice them. Like, this might be my 20th time of rewatching this movie and I still notice new things about it. It's about having layers, and this is something that I actually learned in improv from one of my teachers, which is the concept of the two spinning plates. Hold on, I'll show you. Let me grab a microphone. Alright, let's imagine this is an improv comedy show and I'm doing a scene. For example, I could be making a pizza, okay? So I have my pizza dough right here. I am currently making it, and maybe I'm putting a little bit of flour in there, and I'm making it, and I'm flattening it, getting my rolling pin, rolling it, and making a nice delicious pizza. Whatever. I didn't say I'm a good improviser. This is my one plate, and what I was talking about was also the activity I was doing, which is okay. It is not necessarily a mistake, but it is not quite as engaging as it could be for the audience. Now, if I was, instead of talking about what I'm doing, talked about something completely unrelated, like for example, the universe, and if we're alone in there, and if aliens are real, it would force you to divide your attentions between two things, what I'm doing and what I'm actually talking about. And suddenly, this makes for quite a bit more engaging experience for the audience. And also, layers in comedy movies. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have pizza for dinner tonight. In the case of Airplane, when they give exposition or they feel like a particular moment is not funny enough by itself, they'll add more layers to it. Like for example, in the beginning of the movie when the characters arrive in the airport. 9 times out of 10, this is a transitional scene. We don't really care about it as an audience, we basically dismiss it because we've seen it 100 times and we're sort of waiting to move on to the interesting stuff, but to a good writer, everything is a comedic opportunity. So what they do is have the airport announcers fight with each other over the speakers and enter a very personal fight, which is ridiculous, but also funny and makes the scene count. Once again, the pacing of this movie is relentless. By the time a joke hits, even if you didn't think it's that funny, you wouldn't have to wait too long before you get another one. Looking at the data, the average time between a setup and a payoff is just a few minutes, sometimes it's barely a few seconds, but having the right timing could make or break the joke. Let's take for example the statuette on the cockpit. We've seen it throughout the entirety of the movie and we've accepted it as something completely normal. And then on the 49th minute, they show it again, however this time a little bit closer, just to plant that seed in our brain. And then exactly 4 minutes later, the setup is paid off. Had they not done that, there's a good amount of chance that we might have forgotten about the statue or not even noticed it in the first place, and basically end up being more confused by the joke rather than amused. But at the same time, knowing that allows them to take full advantage of it. In the beginning of the movie, they set up a man entering the taxi of the main character who is now chasing his love interest in the airplane, and come back to him once 6 minutes later. And then one more time 42 minutes after that, having accumulated a massive bill at the taximeter and still waiting for some reason, but that's it. The joke is done and it's funny. And yet, once the events of the entire movie have unfolded, we've been through everything, we've seen the end credits, the logos, and we've completely forgotten about the man in the taxi, we go back to him one last time.
Well, I'll give him another 20 minutes. But that's it.
You could also say this is a running gag, and there are plenty of those in the movie. It is very satisfying when we revisit a bit, like the woman being suspicious of her husband, the appliances in the control room, or my personal favorite, the tower supervisor having chosen the wrong week to quit cigarettes and pills and eventually sniffing glue. It is a pattern. We naturally gravitate towards patterns, and sometimes the running gags also utilize an additional comedy principle which is known as heightening. Basically, the first time a joke is introduced, it is fairly grounded or even just a setup, the news or getting a live memo. Then, the second beat is heightened. It's in Japan, but for some reason, the screen is hand-drawn. And then for the third beat, you turn the notch all the way up, with a tribal news anchor reporting the news. And by the way, somehow the drumsticks contain all the information? I don't know. But I love it. Sometimes it is silly for the sake of being silly, and sometimes it is subverting the expectations, which is exactly what it sounds like, doing the opposite of what you would expect. The main actress, for example, is supposed to be this classic old Hollywood modest love interest, but she is constantly proven to be quite the dirty mind. You have children acting like grown-ups, and of course Leslie Nielsen, which we now see as a comedy legend, but who was specifically casted because up until this point he was known as a serious drama actor, and by having everyone play it straight and not casting comedy actors, they managed to create a lot of natural humor. There's also juxtaposition, which takes cliches from other movies and situations and applies them to this one, like having the plane depart as if it was at a train station. And of course, there's the dialogue. Witty, snappy, and effective. Some of the formulas they're using are misunderstanding the question.
This woman has to be gotten to a hospital.
A hospital? What is it?
It's a big building with patients, but that's not important right now.
Taking things literally.
Okay, boys, let's get some pictures.
And good old wordplay.
And that, as much as anything else, led to my drinking problem.
And this is something I specifically want to highlight, is the fact that funny dialogue is only one of the many tools they're using. And this is probably one of my biggest problems and something I'm missing from a lot of modern comedies. It's the fact that they rely a little bit too much on good and witty dialogue, and then all the other tools are a little bit underutilized. While with Airplane, every opportunity there is for something to be even remotely funny is taken advantage of. Starting with the poster itself, to the soundtrack, opening scene, jokes in the end credits, and a bunch of small subtle stuff that I could probably spend an hour talking about. But the point is, Airplane is holding up incredibly well, and it made money. It made a lot of money considering its budget, so it just proves that there is an appetite for a genuinely good comedy. And my hope is that by reverse engineering it, we might be just a little bit closer to getting one of those again. Until then, if you want to see me overanalyze more things about movies, click the video in here. See you!